Well, you working GM, nigga? What? Shit.
Don't pumpkin.
He pump gas? What the fuck this nigga do, man?
Hell no, nigga. I can't dig it.
You're an animal. A filthy, big-lipped beast.
Radiation runs in bulk, I clock green.
Then his wife threw her titties in my hand. It was weird, Your Honor.
You grabbed her titties.
That's some old Bobby Brown and New Edition shit.
Yeah, you on that bullshit, nigga. Like I told you, you always calling me when you need a ride, nigga.
Check 1, 2, Fat Mac Almighty Triple XL, coming at you live and direct from MacCity.com and the Mac City Limits. We are back, fellas. We are back. Oh man, it's funny, man. You know how you have a podcast show, man, that do like thousands of downloads, and then you try to put that shit on like YouTube, and it get like 100 downloads. It's like, damn. It's like, what the hell, boy? It's hard trying to translate that following over to YouTube, but we gonna keep plugging at it, man. We gonna keep plugging at it. We gonna make y'all come over here to YouTube and listen to some of these joints, man. So, with that being said, boy, we gonna bring the heat as usual. And in this show, man, you know, I got my partner, man, nigga Fuchsia's, Tony Dreamer, Magneto, chiming in one time for your mind. We gonna do some, what we call some viewer mail, or it's not viewer mail, listener mail. Got my boy Issa Ali on deck, my boy Bam and J. And, man, my boy Jason, I'm sorry, Jason, hit me back with your email because I vaguely remember the question that you proposed, man. I'm not necessarily sure what you were asking in that email, so hit me back. You know, you was talking about the psychology of traveling. And I'm not necessarily sure what you meant by traveling. Is it in an esoteric sense or is it in a physical sense? I can't remember, man. You know, I try to dig up the email, which you talked about it entirely, but I can't seem to find it. So hit me back, Jason, man. I'm sorry that I'm just not clear on the issue, man. So we're going to kick it off with the emails first. So we going to do, all right? So my boy, Tony, first of all, Tony, say what's up to the people, man.
Hey, what's happening, everybody? What's going on?
What's happening, everybody? Shit, man.
We're watching the world burn.
We are watching it implode and burn and all that, man. Shit. My boy Issa, he want to motherfucking know, man. The whole concept, man, you know, of marriage, man. You know, historical concepts of it. You know, is it necessary? You know, what's the ins and outs of it? What's the goods, the bad, the ugly of marriage and stuff? So I just like to just flat out just ask you, is marriage a good contract, Tony?
Now, in present state, hell no. Hell no, it's not. Hell no.
No? Oh.
Hell no, because the marriage has been an institution that's been around. It's not as old as prostitution.
Okay.
And power tricking by extension. I shouldn't say power.
Okay.
It is not as old as prostitution and tricking, but it's an old institution. The good thing about marriage is that it is a institution to stabilize nations.
Okay.
The backbone of any nation is a family, and the backbone of any family is a marriage.
Right.
See, and marriage is also a way to pass down property.
Okay.
Marriage, by and large, is a social contract when it comes to nations, when it comes to being able to populate nations and being able to people nations and being able to set laws and regulations and rules.
Right.
It is an economic contract from the standpoint that there's a certain degree of economics involved. If you can run a home, if you understand the basics of running a home, then you understand the basics of running a nation.
Right.
In other words, if you're running a home, if you're spending too much, if you're overspending and you don't have enough money to pay your bills inside your home, what you do, you tighten your budget.
Right.
Well, the nation works the same way. So marriage, which is it's a reproductive strategy, to borrow a term. It is a reproductive strategy of nations. It's how we continue civilization. It's how we propagate ethics, values, morals, and all those things. But it's also, like I said, a way and a means to pass down property. Marriage is very important for passing property, because with marriage, you either pass property to your wife if she outlives you,
Right.
or she passes it to her husband, and it goes on to the children. It's a way to pass down and create generational wealth.
Okay.
So from that perspective, it's very important, and it's a positive because it keeps society orderly for the most part. Okay?
Okay.
And as that video that I sent you, he said it is a way to channel creative energy or reproductive energy. It forces society to create order out of a need for survival. See, because if everybody is vested in society, our families, if everybody in society, if society consists of a family structure, a family infrastructure, then everything is predicated on prosperity, survival, and prosperity. Survival, growth, and prosperity. So all of these things come from marriage, and they're good things. And you also happen to breed sane individuals for the most part.
Right.
So, that's one thing that comes out of marriage. But the problem is, the negative aspect is, marriage has gotten perverted.
Okay.
And it's gotten usurped and corrupted. The institution of marriage from the American historical perspective comes out. All of our laws are shaped by old English law, or the laws from the crown, from the old, what they call the old country of the European.
Okay.
It comes out of old English jurisprudence. Okay?
All right.
Old English jurisprudence recognize one thing. They recognize, look, that based upon the physiology of male and female, the male is suited for a certain type of role, which carries with it certain responsibilities, benefits, and privilege. And the female is accorded a certain role that carries with it a certain amount of responsibilities, roles, and so forth. And based upon the fact, and here's where they paid some attention to common sense.
Okay.
If a man's strength is supposed to be matched out in the field, if you put him out there in the field so that he can feed his family, if he's in the role of a protector, then because he has that responsibility, that awesome responsibility for the care, welfare, and maintenance of other people, his rights or his authority was supreme.
All right.
His rights and his authority, because he has more vested in society from a physical standpoint. He has more responsibility.
All right.
From a societal standpoint. So you give him to the person that has the most risk also gets the most reward. That makes sense.
Right.
Okay? So based upon that, they looked at the wife as being the dependent of the husband. Why? Because it was his responsibility to take care of her.
Right.
It was his responsibility to protect her and to protect his family. So therefore, they were dependent. So all of her rights were derived through her husband.
Okay.
That's how the English or the British or the European looked at it. All your rights came through the man based upon his responsibility as a protector and a provider. Okay?
Okay.
So then at some point, you could also punish your wife. It also provided a checking mechanism. If your wife got out of control, a way to correct her. And I'm sure you're familiar with the old rule that you could whip your wife with a stick as long as it wasn't as wide as your thumb.
Good old days, nigga.
Yeah. So, when you were talking about last time, that was the English version when you were saying, I want Sharia law in this bitch. One thing about the European, they had their own version of Sharia law.
Okay.
You know? So that means whoopings, whips,
Right.
all that shit could be used to correct your wife.
Right.
You know, the Japanese also had a system where they didn't take lip from what's those women, the geishas.
Right.
They didn't take lips off of the ratchet women in their society. They would chop a woman's head off as quick as they would chop a man's head off.
Damn.
It was complete respect. You kept that balance in place. That order had to be maintained. So in the institution of marriage in English jurisprudence, the wife was the dependent, and in some instances the property of the husband,
Okay.
because of his increased responsibilities. Now what happened is, as we got to the 20th century, the woman suffrage movement,
All right.
they wanted to agitate for the right to vote. Well, they got the right to vote because they said, well, we want to be equal members of society and so forth and so on. And so they said, well, okay, well, they gave them, I think it was 1920, but they got the right to vote. Well, as these rights began to give them more privileges, and as these movements, began to give them more privileges and rights in society, they got the privileges and rights, but they left the part of the responsibility for the woman being in the province of the man.
Right.
So in other words, you got all of these laws to loosen your restriction on any type of accountability or control, but the man still has the responsibility for taking care of it.
Right. Right.
That's where shit got fucked up.
Right.
Okay, I can't check you, but I got to pay for you even though I'm not with you.
Wow. Okay.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So I got none of the perks or the responsibilities that will control your conduct, but I got the burden of taking care of you.
Man.
See, they hooked the shit up where they got it both ways. The emancipated woman didn't mean emancipation economically. It meant emancipation politically and socially. But economically, they still kept you in the pocket of the man. You see? And so that's how this shit got off track. Because they got rid of every type of extension. They got rid of every tie that would bind them to male authority, except the one having to do with the pocketbook.
Okay.
You see? So they came up with these laws because what they were doing, in essence, was saying, look, if you agreed to take this woman and you agreed to this contract where you agreed to her health, her welfare, her maintenance, her safety, her security, and her prosperity, it's not right for you to walk out and leave her in poverty.
Right.
It's not right for you to walk out and leave her in destitution, especially if she has children. And they came up with all these laws. They used to call them bastardy laws for bastard children and so forth. And then accompanying these laws were all other kinds of laws that dealt with fornication.
All right.
Early 20th century also had fornication laws attached to them. Everything was designed to steer you toward marriage because they didn't want these women out here in institutional poverty.
Okay.
Which is what we got now in the black community.
Exactly.
Institutional poverty. A key fundamental concept of marriage in the European context was patriarchy. Patriarchy, the man being in charge. But the emancipated woman created matriarchy, but it still put all the debt and responsibility on the man. So in a way, it turned society upside down. So they came in with all these alimony laws. These alimony laws requiring you to pay this, to keep this woman at a standard of living that she was used to when she was with you, so that she would not go back on any type of assistance, so that she would not be a financial burden to the community, so that she would not be begging for scraps of meat in the street, you know, that type of thing.
Right.
That was the concept or the idea behind it. So now you have to assure that if you don't take, if you agree to get rid of this woman, we're not going to take care of her. You're going to take care of her.
Okay.
The buck stops with you. If we have to take care of her, we're going to get our money back from you. You're going to reimburse us for the cost of taking care of this woman because the marital contract was broken when you or she filed for divorce. We shouldn't have to pay for that. That is your responsibility. That is the principal intent behind alimony laws, and that's why they're so unfair, and that's why they're heavily stacked in favor of the woman. They do not want these women returning to positions of institutional poverty. Because if there's institutional poverty, that doesn't last for one generation. That lasts for successive generations. Because that type of infrastructure multiplies. You remember the damn Gremlins? You remember the movie The Gremlins?
Yeah.
You know, when you drop a water on their back, or, you know, you get them wet and they multiply.
Right.
Well, that's the way they saw institutional poverty. And that's the way they saw single family homes. The shit tends to multiply over generations, and you have a whole society of disorder and ratchetness and dysfunction. In other words, divorce breeds or creates this process of dysgenic breeding.
Okay.
Dysgenic breeding.
Right.
And you got all this ratchet, all these, useless people, because Europe was not kind to its poor people.
All right.
It was not kind to its poor people at all. Poor people were used as cannon fodders. Poor people usually had the most dangerous jobs. They had a very, very high attrition rate, a low attrition rate, because many of them didn't survive. So marriage was their answer. In other words, economically, it was their answer to poverty. So if there was something that happened that disrupted that contract, you bear the responsibility for that. And that's what we have here in the United States. That's why no matter what you say, marriage is not even about who did what. Mm-hmm. Your wife can go out there and suck 100 dicks. Your wife can go out there and fuck 100 niggas. She could be gangbanged. And they're not even concerned about that. Mm-hmm. The most important part of that proceeding is who's going to pay the property settlement. Right. They give less than 2 fucks what she did. They give less than 2 fucks what she did. The concept is, the idea is, what's the property settlement? How much do you have to pay in order to get rid of this woman? Mm. And that's why the divorce laws are the way they are. That's why the child support laws are the way that they are. Because they do not want these women and these children returning back to poverty. Period. Shit. And that's why when men go into court to sue for divorce, it never turns out good for them.
What I'm trying to figure out is, to me, it really just seems like it should be a common sense situation because according to what I've seen, what I've read, when it comes to divorce, women are 70 to 75% responsible for divorces, where they're the ones that actually go into court and want the divorces, right? But these females, they getting all the money, they're getting all the property. I'm just like, wait a second now. It's like you the one that wants the divorce. You basically the one that wants to be on your own, to be free as a bird. You know what I mean? And you getting the spoils. You know what I mean? I think that should be a law stating that if a female goes ahead and she wants to be set free, then okay, you can be set free, but hands off the money. You know what I mean?
Well, a couple of states have has something called married woman property statutes.
Right.
What that in essence means is that your debts are yours. Your contracts, they're your business. Okay. But the Married Woman's Property Act didn't touch the issue of property settlement.
Okay.
And here's what I mean. Married woman's property simply means what it says. Whatever she came into the marriage with, whatever debts she contracted in the marriage remains with her. Mm-hmm. That doesn't deal with the issue of her maintenance. Okay. It just deals with the issue of her debts. Mm. You're still responsible. See, they found an end run around that. So what they did was they said, okay, well, we won't worry. The Married Woman's Property Statute deals with debt. This deals with property separation. This deals with property, how we're going to disperse of the property that we accumulated together. Well, it's one and the same. Because, okay, you're still addressing her, you're using his income or his property, or his assets to solve her debt.
Right.
When you're doing a property settlement agreement.
Right.
Explain to me, if this woman, if her debts are her own, why should he be paying her medical bills? Why are you awarding her enough money in a divorce settlement to pay her bills when the statute says she should pay her own bills? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, in essence, they never severed. What I'm saying is they didn't sever that cord that required that man to be responsible for that woman. Again, they gave women social freedom, they gave them political freedom, but they did not give them economic freedom. They still left that responsibility up to their husbands. Because, again, the concept is we don't want these women on the government tit. We don't want them on the government doles. So somebody has to pay. If we pay, we're going to get it back from you. Either you pay or you pay. And you're absolutely right when you said they initiate most of the... You're absolutely correct about that. So they should be responsible. If it's your agreement, if it's your feeling or it's your choice to sever this contract, why should I be punished because you're severing the agreement?
Exactly.
That doesn't make sense. But the way they have it set up is the overall principal policy is for this woman not to return to a state of destitution. That's all it's about. Making sure that she is not on any form of assistance from anywhere as far as the government is concerned. Is keeping her off of these assistance programs because they really don't want people on those programs. Those programs were not designed for people to live on. What they were supplemental income, what they were supposed to be, supplemental income for people who didn't make enough money to keep them comfortably above the poverty level. But what has happened is they're using those programs as a means of living and as a means of survival. So now what they got to do, the government has to get their money, the system, the society has to get their money back from somewhere. And they're saying somebody got to pay, and it's you. Because they never resolved the question of what happens when this woman wants to leave. They never even thought about that question because they placed all the responsibility on the man. Everything was placed on him. That's why he got the right to do the things he did. That's why he got the right to correct his wife. Because you have to do everything possible to keep this intact, because if you don't, you're fucked.
Mm-hmm. Shit. See? Well, what I'm thinking, man, is like, the powers that be, goddamn, they have, you have to be stone cold blind not to see that women have an incentive to act a jackass. You know what I mean? It's like they can do whatever the fuck they want, whatever the fuck they want to do it, and they can pop off and they can get divorces. I mean, there is no consequences or repercussions for this shit, and it's just like, what? Y'all don't see that this fosters, this actually creates broken homes, this whole concept of going to court and, thrashing the man. You know what I mean? If females knew that if they went to court and they were trying to, get some money out of a man, it wasn't going to be that easy. And if it was a 50-50 chance that the shit could backfire and blow up in their face, I believe that, you wouldn't have any, proliferation of broken homes. You know what I'm saying? But they make it so easy for the woman to go in and just...